Hello, Mr. Seth.
Still
Oh, you muted yourself. There you are.
learning the Zoom thing. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll have a bunch more people pop on pretty much right at 8:30, but how's it going?
It's going really well. You?
Good. Are you in New York right now? Or are you out
I
of
am. Actually in my apartment.
town? Nice.
But
Your
we
Brooklyn
we've been
apartment?
crazy busy of late. You guys?
That's good. Yeah, in Dallas for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been it was a slow start to the year. Like the first quarter of the year was as slow. I've been doing this for 20 years. It was as
Yeah.
slow as I can remember, honestly. Like working with tons of buyers, having a lot of listings, but things just really kind of being like, stuck for lack of a
Yeah.
better word. And then all of a sudden it just kind of opened up the last, I'd say like 6 or 7 weeks.
That's good. And you guys' cycle is way long.
Yeah. I mean, we, we, New York, historically is like on or off. There's never kind of a middle ground for us. We're either crazy busy or everybody's in the Hamptons.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys are busy.
Yeah.
And everyone's popping on right now, right on time, and we'll have some people keep hopping on. But to
I'll take
honor
it.
everybody's time that was on time, everyone, this is Seth Levin. If you guys don't know Mr. Seth, I'll give you a little introduction. He is an agent in New York, specifically Manhattan, but I think you do other boroughs, right?
Well,
Like
Brooklyn and Manhattan,
Brooklyn,
really.
Manhattan.
Mhm.
And Seth, I thought you were just like top 1% of agents in New York. You're the top 1% of agents in all of the US. So congrats on
Thank
that.
you. Appreciate it.
Um, and I asked Seth, because a lot of people on here wanted to know more about negotiation. And I asked around and someone's like, oh, you should get Seth. I was like, duh, I should get Seth. Because Seth does negotiation on a little bit of like expensive properties. So if you want to just give us a little bit more introduction about yourself, about what your business looks like. I know you have a partner. Yeah, just let us know a little bit about Seth before getting into the nitty-gritty on negotiation.
Perfect. So I have been in the business for 20 years. Actually, this month is 20 years. Started July 2003. Was a single agent for the first 13 years of my business at Douglas Elliman in New York City, where I was in the top 20 individuals in the company. Came over to help found the Keller Williams in Tribeca in 2016. Met my now business partner. We formed a team. We've been the number one team in New York City, all of New York City for Keller Williams. I think 5 of the 7 years that we've been here. We've got about $1 billion in career sales, and my favorite part of the business is definitely negotiation. But I think everything is a negotiation. So I just enjoyed the business, and I enjoy being strategic in my conversations. And when I first came over, to Keller Williams, it was incredible. People were sharing their secrets, right? I'd never seen that before. At my old company, nobody shared anything. Everybody was so, everything was under lock and key, and you really did not see what people were doing in their business, right? So when I came over and I saw that people were kind of sharing and teaching and taking, their show on the road to different market centers, I was like, what am I good at? What is the thing that I would say is my, kind of defining strength in real estate? And definitely realized it was negotiation. But I mean, negotiation is the listing presentation. Negotiation is every time you pick up the phone to talk to a client. Negotiation is the first time you have a buyer consultation. Of course, negotiation is also when we're negotiating terms with another agent. But when we're showing property, that's part of a negotiation. When we're fielding phone calls about our properties, we're planting seeds for a future negotiation. I always kind of, and I have a negotiation presentation that I teach almost weekly to different market centers around the country. And it could go about 2 hours. So I'm going to give you guys the speedy condensed version. But I always start by kind of telling this story. When I was a kid, and this is like the God's honest truth, like when I was a kid, I heard every single day, Seth, this is not a negotiation. Because I tried to negotiate with teachers, my parents, and I would say I'm not negotiating. But if I could go back in time, I would have said, of course we're negotiating. Everything's a negotiation. I just have no power here and I'm going to lose the negotiation. But of course, like everything is a negotiation. First time you speak to a client, you are negotiating your value. You're removing negatives. You are planting seeds for future expectations. And you're just setting the parameters for the relationship. You're proving your value. So I been in real estate for 20 years. Before brokering real estate, I did some real estate investing and development actually in the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico. Before that, yeah, I'm older than I look. Before that, I actually imported museum quality gemstones, and I learned a lot about negotiation from the standpoint that people do it differently, because I was negotiating with people from the Middle East, from Africa, from South America, from as far away as India, as Colombia, all different cultures. And I noticed something, like everybody gets to the same endpoint, but the dance is always different. So the most important thing for us to do is not entrench ourselves emotionally and be like, oh, this is going wrong. That came in too low. We need to be calm and we need to have a big picture. And the number one thing that we do in negotiation is listen, because you don't learn anything from talking, right? So I used to say, he who talks first loses. I don't really say that as much anymore, because I mean, sometimes you do want to speak first and kind of plant a seed, but the person that listens the most gets the most information, understands the motivation of the person they're talking to, right? We are in the business of understanding and learning people's motivations. First and foremost, how do we, service our clients if we don't know their true motivation? I don't walk into every listing appointment thinking these people want to get the most money for their property, right? Because we have a couple who's been in their home for 40 years. They bought their place for 100,000 and it's now worth 2.8 million. They might not care about if they get 2.7 or 2.775. But a couple who bought their place in 2019 for 1.9 million certainly is going to care if they get 2.2 or 2.275. That's $75,000 is meaningful to them. So we go into every interaction with our clients, with agents on the other side, trying to learn the motivation, right? We can't service our clients properly. We can't help them achieve their goals if we don't understand their motivations. On the other side, conversely, we're trying to learn the motivation of the buyers or sellers on the other side of the transaction, so we understand how to negotiate with them. We understand what they're willing to do. One of my nicknames is Storytime Seth, because all I do is tell stories. And this is a big part of negotiation. Like, I don't tell people what to do at listing presentations. I tell them stories of other people's past successes. People want to be in the smart club, not the dumb club. So show them stories of people having success. I take the same listing brochure to every single listing appointment I go to, because this is a prop for me to tell 3 stories: one about staging, one about pricing, one about not using the building expert and using a market expert. I actually did not. I'll share my screen real quick. Do you mind?
I can make you co-host. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want me to spotlight you, Seth? So you're nice and big for everybody.
Sure.
Here we go. Also, while Seth is pulling that up, Seth is also very fun. So if you ever go to like one of our like family reunion, or I don't know if you're going to Mega Camp this year. I think the only time I saw you at family reunion was at Club Hilton, and had a nice dance party with Seth.
Yep. Can you guys see this?
No.
No. Why is it not giving me? Let me try that again. I literally do this like every week.
That's okay.
Let's see. It is open on my end.
There you go.
All right, perfect. All right, great. So, I say negotiation from a position of power, but my whole premise for negotiation is come on in, the water's warm. It's not high pressure, it's not pushing people away. We are trying to create low pressure environments to get people to do essentially what's in their best interest if they're our clients, and what's in our clients' best interest if they're on the other side of the transaction. So I believe that we start negotiating from first contact. From the first time we speak to people, you should have a cheat sheet. Like I train my team and I train agents all the time about specific talking points from the first conversation you have. Like I'm really big on something called the market pulse. It's like a market score, like traders use market score for different segments of a financial market. I use market pulse, which is the ratio of active listings to pending listings, contract signed to active ratio. The more pending compared to active, the higher the score of the market. And I talk in finance terms to my clients because I want to be an advisor, not an order taker. I'm an idea presenter, not an order taker. So I talk about arbitrage opportunities where we can sell in a weak segment or sell in a strong segment of the market, buy in a weak segment of the market. And market pulse, if there's 10 listings in a specific area, like Chelsea, one bedroom co-ops, there's 10 active and there's 10 in contract, the market pulse is 1. If there's 5 active and 10 in contract, the market pulse is 2. If there's 10 active and 5 in contract, the market pulse is 0.5. And this is a way that I can speak to clients about things that they can't see on Zillow. Like we don't really use Zillow in New York. Our clients use Street Easy, which is basically it is Zillow. But we want to talk in terms that clients don't have, right? If you're just regurgitating the same stuff that they can see all the time, they're not going to buy in that you're an advisor, that you're a expert that they should be listening to. So I have the first conversation. I'm talking about days on market. I'm talking about the macro view of the market. I'm talking about the specific segment of the market that they're looking at, the relative strength of that market, month over month, year over year, price per square foot, market pulse, days on market, supply, pending. And, I really want to hit them with data the first time that I speak with them, right? So why do we want to be good negotiators? Obviously, getting a commission that's, a fair payment for your work is pretty big. Like we spend a lot of time and a lot of money, trying to help people achieve, success with their real estate assets. So, I think one of the most important negotiations is the listing presentation, right? So the difference in my market, typically I try to get 6% commission. At certain price points, yes, we'll do 5%, but I'm almost exclusively work at a 6% commission, 3% to the buyer, 3% to me. But, a lot of people, and again, this is about motivation. Nobody cares about you, right? Not yet. First, they need to trust you. Then they start to respect you, and eventually they like you, or vice versa. Maybe they like you first and then respect you, but eventually, first they need to trust that you're good at your job. Eventually, they start to like you, they respect you, and they want to advocate for you. But that happens later in the process, right? When you're first meeting someone, you have to remember that you might be one of 5 people they're talking to. So a lot of agents say, oh, well, if I can't negotiate for my commission, how good am I going to negotiate for you? Or they might say, we spend a lot of money on your listing. This is, what we charge. That's about you. I make it about them. Their motivation is to achieve the highest price for their listing, right? So when I talk about negotiation, when I talk about commission, I always talk about it as a way to net more money, right? Tapping into their motivation. So instead of saying, oh, this is what we get paid because of what we do, I say, we do $100 million worth of business a year, my team. The average agent in New York City is doing 1-2 deals a year potentially. So we want to come to the market, you're only a shiny object once when you first come to the market. So we want to present your listing with no chinks in the armor, right? Best photography, pricing it correctly, best market copy. We also understand that 95% of transactions here in New York have 2 agents, right? And we don't get to pick who the agent is on the other side. It might be someone that's doing 1 deal a year. And they may not inherently want to, skew towards a property with 3% co-broke versus 2.5, but it might be even an unconscious bias to go towards that property. So what we want to do is we want to come to the market in the most strong sense possible. And commission is not something that you pay. It's actually a marketing tool. And if you do a 6% commission, the full, sort of what everybody wants to see from the brokerage community, we're going to get you a higher price. Historically, when I put things on at 6%, we do net more money. And what is our goal? We don't care about what happens in the process. The commission is just, something that's getting paid at the end. What we care about is when the dust settles, what's left in your pocket, right? So we're looking at netting you the most money. We have to look at commission as a way to net you the most money. So you guys understand, it's talking to people about their motivation. It's not about you. Never make anything about you. Like, I don't walk in there and say, we've been top 1% in the country for over a decade, top team in New York City, have sold over $1 billion worth of real estate. No, I tell stories about other people's success, which shines a light on me, right? Like, just through the fact that obviously I was their real estate agent, but I talk about how happy I am that this client achieved this success, that this client was able to, move to Florida to retire because we were able to net them this much money. The next thing is, I hate the term objection handling. It's my least favorite term in real estate. It reminds me of like a tennis racket where we're just batting away people's objections. That's not like a human way to deal with people. I think it's speaking to people's concerns, right? So we are not robots. I don't believe in scripting. I believe that you have 10 polls of things that you want to pull from, but I'm not a big scripting person. I feel like that's kind of takes the human element out of it. I really like to understand what somebody's concerns are, talk to them, and make sure that I've spoken to it. Did we get to the concern? Do you feel comfortable? These are humans with human concerns. We need to be humans and speak to those concerns. And as advisors, as experts, as professionals, we should have answers. We should have anecdotes to tell them, oh, you know what? I also had somebody that was in their apartment for 40 years and didn't want to paint, didn't want to, minimize their furniture. But, we had a conversation, they did it. An $11,000 paint job led to $250,000 more than the building expert, quote unquote, thought that they would achieve. We're telling stories, we're, really meeting people head on with their objections. And of course, this is not a get rich quick scheme, real estate. I feel like a lot of agents come in and they're like, I want to do deals. I want to do deals. I do not care about deals. I care about relationships. And I know everybody talks about relationships. This is relationship business, but it is. I had a $400,000 buyer, which is the lowest price point in New York City, who was referred to me because I talked her friend out of buying a $3 million place, right? He was only going to be there for 2-3 years. And I was like, you should rent. New York City, the closing costs on the front end and the back end are high enough that I cannot guarantee that you're going to break even in 3 years, 2.5 years in this property. Unless you want to be a landlord, rent. So he rented. About a year and a half later, he referred me to Kathy Shao. This name is on the Mount Rushmore in my team. Like, everybody knows Kathy. Kathy bought a $400,000 place. She actually got a board rejection from a co-op, one of my only in 20 years. And then she said to me, Seth, give me to somebody on your team. I know that this is a low price point and I've taken a ton of your time. And I was like, no, Kathy, I'm getting you an apartment. So we got the $400,000 place. In the last 5 years, I've gotten $50 to $60 million worth of referrals from Kathy. In 2021, I had 3 of her friends bought an A-line in a new development for $2.5 million each, developer offering 4% commission. $300,000 from 3 of her friends that looked at only one apartment ever. We were able to achieve $400,000 client. This is a relationship business. We can't work by price point. We can't work based on transaction. You really genuinely have to care about people to be successful in this business, because when people know that you care about them and you've gone to bat for them, they will give you referrals for the rest of eternity. My business is 95% referral, 5% people from buildings that I've sold in calling me, right? So it's really important to do the right thing by people. So I always love this. Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. So many people are afraid of negotiation, but they don't realize they negotiate constantly. They might just, some people maybe do it better than others, but listening, pausing, planting seeds, you're never going to out negotiate somebody by brute force, right? You're going to push them away. You're going to out negotiate somebody by listening to them, by tapping in, and by curating through research a story to show them that what you're talking about is correct, right? So, again, like objection handling, I can't stand. Traditional definitions of negotiation, I can't stand. But what I think it is just figure out what motivates who you're talking to connect to their motivation and maximize, your side's outcome. That's negotiation. It's all tapping into and understanding people's motivation. So first one is don't lie. I don't even have that on the list. We're not lying in a negotiation. Never lie. You get caught. And it's just wrong, obviously, but you get caught. Like, I've caught people lying so many times in negotiation, and it ruins their credibility for the rest of a transaction. It makes you want to work with a different potential buyer, or go to a different listing if you're working with the buyer. So when this was 2014, I believe, I was negotiating on 151 West 17th, apartment 5H. And it's actually the same line. Khalees and Nas had lived one floor below in 4H, and I'd been in their apartment. We were negotiating, and the agent kept telling me, oh, there's another offer. It's another offer. And I was on the phone, and my friend Tracy at my old company, we had private offices and shared a hallway. We kept our door open a lot. And she heard me, and she was like, oh, you've got an offer on 5H? I did, and we backed out. I was like, oh, you backed out? He's telling me that there's still an offer. So I called him and I said, you know what? Because of your higher offer, we're going to move on. We're going to look at other property. But if you want the 1.775 that we've offered, we're here until we find something else, right? I don't threaten, give us till 10 p.m. Nobody wants that pressure put on them. You can create the same urgency without giving people ultimatums and deadlines, just by saying, you know what, we'd love to do the deal with you. Again, we're very complimentary. We're very, come on in, the water's warm. We'd love to do the deal with you. It sounds like you've got something stronger. We're going to move on. However, if we haven't found something yet and you want to do the deal at 1.775, we'll do it. We were willing to go up to 1.9. We got it for 1.775, just because I was like, you know what, this guy's he's created this little lie, and I'm going to take advantage of it. Also, listen more than you speak. You'll hear me say that constantly. I had a listing. I actually told this story yesterday. Was on 2 Zooms yesterday. So this is the third time I'm telling the story in 2 days, but it's one of my favorites. So I had a client, Dory. She bought in Gramercy Park neighborhood of Manhattan in like 2007, studio apartment. She got married. They were not going to live in a studio apartment for terribly long. Bought a 2-bedroom on the Upper East Side. And it was a building that nothing had ever traded over 1.5, right? So they were going to stay there for a long time, but she got pregnant and she found out they were having twins, and she was like, let's get ahead of this. We're not going to have, a family of 4 in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. So they decided they wanted to move to Long Island. So I've known her for, at this point, almost 2 decades. And she was like, I know that, the right price you're telling me is like 1,475 to list, 1,495 tops, but I'd like to try for 1,575. I was like, you know what? I am perfectly fine with that, but we're going to set an expectation that if we don't accept an offer within 2 weeks, we're going to lower it to 1,475. And that goes into my listing agreement, right? I want people to come to me and say, Seth, is it time to lower the price? I don't want to chase people down. So I'm planting the seed. That's one of the hard, fast rules of negotiation. Set the expectations up front, remove the negatives before they become negatives. So we put in the listing agreement. If we don't have an accepted offer within 2 weeks, we're lowering it to 1,475 from 1,575. So first open house, we get a cash offer accepted right under 1.5, like I think 148 or something. They backed out. A week later, we got another accepted offer. That person backed out. I was like, what is going on? This apartment's cursed. So, so they come to me and they said, Seth, is it time to lower the price? I was like, you know what? There's one person who's kind of been coming around to both open houses. I can tell that they're pretty interested. Let me call their agent and see if I can shake the tree a little bit before we lower the price. This was the number 2 agent in all of New York City, by the way, at that point in time. She'd been in the business for 30 plus years. She was a listing machine, one of the top probably 20 agents in the United States at that point in time. I called her, said to her, can, you get your clients back in? I, can tell that they're interested. We've had a fair amount of interest on this property. It's not going to last. And I don't tell people how many offers we have. I always say because of the level of interest, right? That's one of my terms, because of the level of interest. I never say, oh, we've got so many offers. That creates high pressure. I'm trying to say, come in, the water's warm. We've got a high level of interest, but we're still available, right? So I said to her, there's a high level of interest on the property, but would love to do a transaction with you. Always say, I'd love to do a transaction with you. Collaborative, complimentary, that goes so far with real estate agents. So got them in, and I show my properties, right? We don't have lock boxes here in New York. We have somebody that shows on the listing side and on the buy side. So I don't use that. And if you're not showing your properties in person and you're using lock boxes, you can do this on the telephone. I like to preempt, them having to do research and see, oh, apartment 8A sold for 800,000. You're asking 1.1 on the 4th floor in the same line in the building. Before they even get in the door, I'll say, oh, as I'm sure you saw, you're a great agent. I'm sure you did the research. Apartment 8A sold for 800,000. That was a parent selling to a child, and that was the lowest price that the co-op would allow. And I'll give them that information before they even see the property to remove a potential upcoming negative. Preempt any strike against you with a preemptive counteroffensive. So I called this agent, back to the story, called the agent, got them in, and I don't point out, here's the kitchen, look at these window treatments. I'm trying to understand the motivation of the buyer when I'm there. And if you're a buyer's agent and your clients are going to open houses without you, make sure that you coach them not to betray their motivation, their time frame, their price point, a need for school. Don't let your clients betray these motivations, because a good seasoned agent will pick this stuff off and use it against you in a negotiation. So they're in the apartment, and I, just making conversation. I said, "Oh, how come you guys are looking in the Upper East Side? Just the Upper East Side?" Actually, we just want to be in PS6, this incredible school district, public school district on the Upper East Side. I'm like, okay, PS6, that goes from 86th down to 63rd, from First Avenue over to Park Avenue. I'm just like thinking. And as I'm talking, I said, what about price point? Are you guys, because I do have some other properties coming up, potentially. What's your guys' price point? We could do up to 1.8. Okay. So when I left, the first thing I did was went to the computer and saw if there was any other 2 bedrooms under 1.8 million in the geography for this for the school district. And I called the agent and I said, because of the level of interest on this property, we're going to best and final with a deadline of 5:30 on Thursday. The level of interest was them. I knew that we were the only property in New York City that fit their criteria. This was June. School starts in September. Co-ops take about 3 months to close. We were the only property that these guys could buy. I don't often do best and finals with one person, or highest and best, whatever you want to call it, but I did. And we got 1.625. We were about to lower it to 1.475. We broke a record for the building. I got about 10 more listings in the building and the adjacent building based on a testimonial letter that I had my sellers write. And, they sign it and I send it out, right? So again, like, there's two stories here, or 2 lessons. Like, don't betray your client's motivations. Your job is to protect your client's motivation and to try to uncover the other side's motivation. Because if the other side, I mean, of course, like, if this is a crazy seller's market and you've got a buyer, you might say they need to be in this school district. They really love this apartment, but that's not your average. Like, yes, we've been in a crazy seller's market in parts of the country for a little while now, but I'll tell you, in 2 decades, that momentum swings, right? It's a buyer's market. It's a neutral market. Not all the time the same thing is happening across, like in New York, in different neighborhoods. Like, there's different things happening in different neighborhoods right now. I listed a townhouse in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where we got 14% above ask. We broke the record. It's a 12 townhouse collection. We broke the record by almost 20%. And the most recent sale was before interest rates went up. But there's no inventory and people want to be in this neighborhood. I say this neighborhood because it's where I'm sitting right now. But people want to be in this neighborhood. There's not enough inventory. But then in the Upper East Side, for instance, there's 130 days on market as average. There's probably 4 times as much inventory as there is in contract right now. Where here, the market pulse is probably close to 2, meaning that there's twice as much in contract as active. In the Upper East Side, there's 4 times as much listed as in contract. But because of that, we can create arbitrage opportunities for our clients. Storytime, Seth's got another story. So my client, Elizabeth, she bought a 1-bedroom co-op in 2007 in Chelsea, 161 West 16th Street. And she paid, I want to say, like $650 for it in 2007. She got married and I actually bumped into her in a restaurant in Chelsea in like 2019. But obviously my clients I speak to all the time. I send them stuff once a month. I'm connected to my people. I have clients that will transact with me 18 years later. We're deep in relationship with our people. But she bought a property for $650, and she was in 2019. Our market was actually kind of soft, and it was starting to bounce back in 2020, and then we kind of know what happened. But in 2019, it was a weak, quote unquote, market in New York, and I bumped into her, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are married? Congratulations." She's like, "Yeah, we're pregnant too." I was like, "Oh, that 1-bedroom apartment's probably not going to really fit the bill for much longer." And she was like, "Yeah, but it's such a bad market. We'll wait it out and then we'll sell." I was like, "You know what? There's actually so much going on in the market. There's different market segments. I really think granularly about micro markets in New York. Can I come over on Thursday and talk to you about, what opportunities exist right now? She was like, yeah, of course. I was like, what do you guys want to do? She's like, yeah, we don't want to be in a co-op anymore. We'd like to be in a condo, 3-bedroom. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, the 3-bedroom condo market is actually pretty soft right now. So I went over to her, I showed her that the market pulse, I mean, obviously other information as well, comparative market analysis, but the big thing that I like to target is that market pulse. The market pulse for Chelsea at that point was like 1.5. The 3-bedroom condo market in Manhattan was like 0.24, if I remember correctly. So we talked about being able to sell in a seller's market and buy in a buyer's market. So we're not order takers, we're idea presenters, right? So I'd like to be an advisor and show people how to take advantage of market conditions. There's never a bad real estate market. There are bad times to sell in certain market segments, but there's never a bad real estate market. There's always ways to be creative and figure out ways to take advantage of it. So went over to her place, showed her how strong relatively her market was compared to the 3-bedroom condo market. We wound up putting her place on the market for 1.1. It's a 1-bedroom. At that point in 2019, I think we broke a record for 1-bedroom in that building, even in a down market, quote unquote. And then she bought a 3-bedroom that was asking 4.5 million. We got it for 3.7. She got $800,000 off. She crushed it. That apartment is worth about $5 million right now because it's in Park Slope, Brooklyn, which is such a hot market. She got it for 3.7. A couple of years later, it's worth 5 million. She sold her place for 1.1. Nothing had traded at that. So instead of like painting the market with a wide, brushstrokes, we've got to be granular. We've got to look at different market segments and being creative, showing people that you can think differently than just this macro story that's out there. People really will respect that. They'll think of you as, because a lot of real estate agents don't do a lot of research, right? A lot of real estate agents don't, they're not super creative. They just kind of mimic what is going on in the news, the sentiment of the buyer, the seller. I taught Ignite in my market center yesterday to a bunch of new agents about the seller, when the seller. I kind of threw out the paper and I just talked to them for 2 hours. And I said, everybody's going to go in there robotically repeating the same stuff. And, and there's a lot of yes people in our business. Oh yeah, sure. We can do this. Oh, I like to be a human who talks to people and say, you know what? Markets are fluid. Pricing is dynamic is something that I like to say to people because we can get counterfeited. The unit above you or next to you, the building, the house next to you could come on the market and counterfeit your price. So I like to talk about price as a marketing tool, and the market dictates where we're going to sell this, right? I'm not magic. I don't make up a market. Buyers make up the market, right? Whatever they're willing to pay is the market. What I'm going to do is there's a band. I'm going to maximize the top end of that band for you. But we're going to come up with a range today. We're not going to set a price until we list because we don't price in a bubble, right? We list in a market and the market constantly changes every day based on what goes into contract, what comes off the market, what trades, what somebody lists for. So we need to be flexible. However, what I'm going to, show you through some of this comparative market analysis that I put together is that we are seeing trades happen in this band here. If you price above this, you're getting rid of that shiny object, right? When we list, we're never going to be a shinier object than when we first come on the market. If we price outside of the market, we're tainted. People are not going to want to come see it. People are going to wait for you to come down, and then there's going to be vulnerability. We're never as strong as when we first come on the market. And I will have this conversation with people point blank like that. I don't want to set bad expectations for my client. We're advisors. You don't go to the doctor and they don't sugarcoat it. They tell you got to stop eating sugar, right? They don't say, oh, if you want, maybe don't eat some. Oh, you want to eat candy bars? Okay, fine. You know what? Eat candy bars and I'll see you in 6 months. That's we don't want to see people in 6 months after we've mispriced the property. So it's about setting the expectation up front, right? It's always about setting the expectation up front. It's removing the negatives up front. Commission conversation, I like to, when I'm talking to a seller, I bring up commission. I don't want them to bring it up. I say to them, so, I sent over the listing presentation. I hope you had a chance to look at it. I'm just going to flip through it real quick with you to just make sure that we hit everything. We're going to talk about what we do to market your property. We're going to talk about pricing. We'll talk about commission. We'll talk about time frame. We'll talk about logistics. And then I'll go through that. I'll say, I'm sure you want to talk about the commission, right? So what we do is we do 6% commission. If it's direct with no agent on the other side, we do 5%. And the reason that we do 6% is because 95% of transactions have 2 agents, and we want to incentivize agents to come to your property. We're using this as a marketing tool in order to get more traction for your listing, right? And then you're just hitting it confidently, and you're being strategic. You're telling them that this is a marketing tact, right? So, I mean, that's the way to do it. Be creative. I sold one of the creators of Vitamin Water. He's on Shark Tank periodically. A penthouse in 2007. I met him at a wedding in India, actually. Took till 2019 for this building to be 2009 for this building to be completed. Between 2007 2009, some stuff happened in the economy, and he had $1.5 million deposit down on this property. And he was like, Seth, tell them they can keep it. I don't want to move forward. I was like, no, why don't we open up the negotiation and see what we can do? Like, how much do you think the market is down? Because we didn't know, because there was no trades in 2009. The market just stopped. I was like, what do you think? He was like, I think 30%. I was like, then let's try to get 30% off. It was a $10 million deal. He was willing to walk away from $1.5 million. I'm like, you got to tap into the motivation of the person who you're transacting with. A developer cares about the optics of the price, right? Because it's trickle down. It's a domino effect. If something falls out of contract, or if something goes lower, builders in your area, they care about the optics of that price. Where a seller who's moving to Florida, retiring and moving to Florida from New York, they don't care about the optics of the price. They care about their pocketbook, their bottom line. So we understand that developers care about optics. So what we did was we negotiated $3 million worth of concessions. We kept the $10 million price, but we got a parking spot. I know this sounds crazy. It was $500,000. We got $1 million decorator credit. We got transfer taxes paid. We got mansion tax paid. We did all this stuff on the back end, and we kept the $10 million price tag for the optics for the developer. And my guy was willing to walk away from $1.5 million. He would have lost $1.5 million, but instead we saved $3 million, $4.5 million swing. That apartment today is worth $15 million, $16 million. He was willing to walk away from $1.5 million because he didn't think we could be creative, right? So definitely want to be creative, be collaborative. Like I always tell, in front of agents, clients, I always say, oh, your agent's great. You're in good hands here. Because they pointed out the window treatment. Like whatever, you're just trying to make people comfortable. You're trying to, be complimentary. Agents in your market are a resource. They're not your competition. I think that needs to change. Like when I first got into business, I would pretend I had buyers that I didn't have for myself. I wouldn't go to and make offers, but I would act as if I had a buyer for specific property. And I would do research, and I would go to open houses just to sort of learn the cadence and kind of understand the market. But what I was also doing was I was going to the top agents' open houses. I wanted to meet them because I figured 90% of deals in any market, less than 10% of the agents are doing them, right? So you want to get to know those 10% so that when there's a highest and best and final, they'll give you inside information. In our market, co-ops, which is 65% of our market, and you guys should be so thankful that you don't have co-ops, but we don't share price because there could be a rejection. Although, I've sold hundreds upon hundreds, and I've only had, I think, 4 co-op rejections ever. but there can be a rejection. So people don't disclose the price until it closes because, you know, it could fall out of contract. It could get rejected. So, but I call agents all the time and I'm like, you know, I would be happy to return the favor for you. I'm about to list something in the building. Can you please share what you're in contract? I get it every time. It's the way that you deal with people. Like you don't act as if, I mean, this is just kind of being a good person, but treat real estate agents in your market really well, because you're going to want to do deals with them, right? They're going to have listings that you want your buyers to be able to purchase. So it's super important to be collaborative. So I'm going to be mindful of everybody's time, but I want to tell this story. The reason I bring this prop to every listing that I go to. So this was a 96-year-old man's apartment. His daughter was one of Woody Allen's movie producers, and she was really cool. My aunt owned an art gallery in Chelsea, in New York City, for many, many years. And this guy was probably the reason that she was able to retire. Every wall in his apartment was covered in paintings. There were sculptures everywhere. Like you could barely walk through this apartment. It was a pretty big apartment. It had views all the way basically to Long Island from the 21st floor of his building. And I walked in and I know that building, there's an agent who sells 90% of the building, Elaine. And she's been in that building for 40 years. She's been on the board. She's, you know, just runs the building. So I go in there knowing that. So I walk in and the daughter pulls me aside and she says, Seth, you know, out of respect for your aunt, my father took this meeting, but he wants to use Elaine. I just want you to know that. I'm like, okay, great. So I walk in, there's paintings everywhere, sculptures, the ceiling is painted burgundy, the walls are painted dark gray. And this is like a view apartment, right? Like all the way, like over the East River, all the way to Long Island. Like this should be a bright apartment. It looked like a cave on the 21st floor. And I was like, oh, just out of curiosity, what did Elaine say that this property was worth? And the 96-year-old gentleman was pretty with it. He was like, well, she said 1.4. And it's like, oh, you like that number, huh? I actually think that your property in this condition is worth 1.5. And I think if you just did a quick paint job and just minimize some of the stuff in here, I'm not talking about bringing anything in, just you minimize. Because what I found is my clients that do this, just this very inexpensive, very, you know, meaningful work will see sometimes 10, 15% bump. And this was a 96-year-old guy. Usually they don't care about every dollar, right? This guy cared about every dollar at 96 years old. I don't know what he was going to do with that money, but he said to me, he's like, you really think we could do 1.5 in this condition? I was like, yes. And 1.6, I think all day long, if we just painted and minimized. And he's like, I really don't want to do anything. And I was like, you know what? How about this? How about I work with my painter? I will get you the best price, because my painter was actually one of my colleagues at my old company. And I talked him out of being in real estate and getting back into painting because he was doing it so poorly, that he now is so thankful for me that he gives my clients incredible deals on painting. We painted this whole big apartment for $11,000. We listed it. We took the photos. We're about to come on the market. And again, pricing does not exist in a bubble. Markets are dynamic. Pricing is fluid. So I suggested to them that we priced at 1.7. The agent in the building said 1.4. Remember? She's the building expert. 1.4. So we looked at the market before listing. We were the only 2-bedroom on the market in Gramercy. Literally, there was no other 2-bedroom under 2 million. I was like, we can push. And the daughter said to me, I've never had a real estate agent ask me to raise a price in all my years. She was like in her 60s. She's like, I have only had real estate agents tell me to lower my price. I was like, well, I'm the real estate agent telling you to raise your price, because again, we don't price in a bubble and the conditions are very favorable for your listing right now. So we listed for 1.7, first open house. Elaine came with a client in front of everybody. She's like, this is so overpriced, it'll never sell. Fortunately, the buyer was not there at that moment. He came a little bit later. He was an employee at Google here in New York, and we got him up to 1.75, 50,000 above the asking price of 1.7. The difference between 1.4 and 1.75 is 25%, right? So we got 25% more than Elaine, the building expert, was going to be able to, what she thought was right price for this guy's apartment. So I take this with me everywhere I go. Listen to me. I'm a market expert. That's what the story tells. A little bit of staging, a little bit of paint goes a long way. And we don't necessarily need to hire the neighborhood expert or the building expert, right? Because your buyers aren't just looking in your building. Your buyers might just not be looking in just your neighborhood. They might not even be just looking in your borough. So you need to have a market expert that understands the entirety of the market, that can contextualize value across all market segments, because your buyer is looking at different market segments. So why do you have somebody that's just tied to a recent comp in a neighborhood? Why do you want somebody that's just tied to a recent comp in a building when the market is existing everywhere outside of this building as well? So we don't, like, if you guys are the neighborhood expert, if you happen to be, don't tell the story. But if you're competing against the neighborhood expert, tell the story. Like, the people that have such a small focus, they don't see the entirety of the market, and the buyers are in the entirety of the market. So moral of the story, take props, tell stories of other people's success, and don't make it about you. But eventually, of course, they're going to come to the conclusion that it was you that helped these people achieve their success, right? So when I receive an offer, I always text the person or email the person, can we get on a phone call? Because I want to be able to, speak to this offer before talking to my clients. But if I'm making an offer for a buyer, I don't press send until I get them on the phone. I always call and I say, oh, is this a good time to talk? And they say, yes. I said, do you get the offer I sent? Boom, I'll send it right then. I want them to read the offer to me. I want to hear their initial reaction to everything in the offer. And I put the high points in a cover letter in bold on the top of a cover letter. So they're going to talk to me about the mortgage contingency. They're going to talk to me about the price, the percent down, all the contingencies, anything that I put in there. I want to hear their initial reaction to it, right? And I do the same thing when I get an offer for a seller. I don't let people hide behind emails and texts. I say, before I present this to the client, I need some clarification. Of course, they're going to call you. They want you to present the offer. And then I say, oh, okay, you made the offer 1.85 million. Interesting. And then I'll just pause. I'll let them tell me the story. Well, this is just the way they negotiate. It's an initial offer. That's good information, but we always want information. Bad information is, they've made offers on 3 other places. This is where they see value. They're not really going to come up, being very honest with you. And then I call my seller and I get to say, we have an offer. I know that you really need to sell. These might not be the people you want to transact with, but if you do want to transact with them, we're probably not going to get them up to your asking price. However, they are here and they are now. Or, it seems like it's an opening offer. I think we can kind of stick with our number, maybe just negotiate just a touch off, and we can push these people a little bit. Nothing is like, that's why I don't like scripts, because everything should be like, you have a bunch of ideas and strategies and information, and you kind of pick and choose based on the situation. So I don't have the same conversation with 2 sellers, but I pull from the same resources of information and experience that I've got, right? And I know that some people are really big into scripting and some people are really big into objection handling. This is just me. There's many ways to do this business. It's a creative business. But I like to be able to pull from a lot of different places and not just have the same conversation, because everybody's motivation is different. Everybody's personality is different. We talk to different people differently. So I mentioned, and I'm over. So Elizabeth, if anyone has any questions, I can wrap it up, and we could always do my full negotiation class another time.
Yeah, I can listen to you all the time. If anyone has a question for Seth, feel free to like put it in the chat or raise your hand. And we're happy to talk to him. I love that this isn't like your typical negotiation conversation, right? It's like not like a Chris Voss kind of thing. It's very like personable and real. So I appreciate you. And Sharky, go for it.
Hey, Seth, good morning. Thanks for sharing.
Good morning.
I love that market pulse idea and sort of and everything around it, which is the idea that like we're advising and we're not taking orders.
Yep. Segmentation.
And so like, could you just spend a moment on sharing, like kind of breaking that down a little bit more? Like I understand the general concept. I'm getting a little bit caught up in the like how much closer to one or further away you get from one, it's important or not. But like, could you just spend another moment on that?
Yeah, of course. So there's buyers markets, there's neutral markets, there's sellers markets, right? There's only 3 kinds of markets. So this is just my opinion based in New York, but I think under 0.6 is a buyer's market. 0.6 to 1 is a neutral market. And when there's more in contract than there is active, I think that's a seller's market. So what I do is I do the market pulse for different neighborhoods, or for a seller, I specifically do it for their neighborhood, but for buyers, I'll show them that there's different markets happening at the same time, right? This is an opportunity market. This is a competitive market. You probably want to be in an opportunity market unless you really need to be in Greenwich Village, right? So what we do is there's 100 units listed. There's 60 in contract. That's the market pulse of 0.6, right? It's the ratio of the pending to the active. So vice versa, there's 60 things on the market and 100 in contract, then it's, almost 2. It's like 1.8, right? Something like that. 1.7. So that's a hyper seller's market. But what I also do is I do that month over month and year over year so that I can show people trends. I'm really big on the month over month, year over year for everything I do. Days on market, pending, supply, because I do the same chart for everybody. So let me think of it. It's it's supply, pending, market pulse, days on market, price per square foot, monthly absorption rate, median price, and two others. But for everything I do month over month, change in percent, year over year. And I send people these 9 boxes and they can see what's happening in that market segment, right? And it's all information that they can't get off of Zillow. There's no way for them to get this info. This is only real estate agents have access to this stuff, right? So this is about you curating information that you have in order to show them your value and to show them that you're not just an order taker, right? That you're an idea presenter and that you understand the market. And like Gary likes to say, be the economist of choice. You can't be the economist of choice if you don't understand the numbers, right? So our job is to understand the numbers. So I'm in Gary's top team mastermind, but I was also in this like 15-person mastermind with Gary that we went to Austin like every month to sort of create the new luxury division, to mastermind on what Keller Williams luxury should be. And it was funny. I just thought this is a funny story to share. He told me that he doesn't like my business because my business is, I was explaining to him that in New York, everybody's thinks they're luxury. Everybody, like, you can say one thing wrong and you're done, right? Everybody, the standards here are so unbelievably high. He was like, oh, well, so you're constantly skating on a razor's edge. I was like, yeah. He was like, don't like that business. But I think to myself, actually, I love that business because you get to prove yourself, here. And if you can differentiate yourself, you can be the person that people refer, right? You could be the person that they say, you have to use Seth, and not only use him, listen to him, right? I got a review yesterday. It was like my favorite review I've ever gotten, from this woman, Lorna, who I just sold her place in Chelsea. She wrote something like, hire them, listen to them. It's magic, something like that. And I'm like, that's what you want. You want raving fans, not because of your personality. Hopefully they like you, but because they trust you. And you were somebody that, like, I started when we were talking originally by saying, you have to genuinely care about people in this business. If it's a get rich scheme, that's not going to work. This is a relationship, long-term business. And if people think that you care about them, because you genuinely do, not because you're tricking them, if people feel that you care about them, they are going to care about you. And they're going to be, the lifeblood of your business is referrals, right? So the more you can show people value, the more that you can differentiate yourself. But also, I talk people out of buying as often as, I tell people to buy. Like, a lot of times people want to buy a place for their kid when they're going to school in New York, or, there's a lot of people like myself that have been here forever, right? But there's also a lot of transient people that come to New York for 3 years for a job. And I will say to them, unless you want to become a landlord, I recommend that you rent. Buying only makes sense if you're going to be here for 5 to 7 years, right? So I talk a lot of people out of buying. And, I got the Kathy Shao story, $50-60 million worth of referrals from talking her friend out of buying initially.
Thanks, Seth. And I know that I think Anna had a question too, but she got off screen. So if you still want to ask it, there we go. I was like, as long as Seth wants to give us his time, I'm not going to kick him off. But honestly, if you guys need to go to work, that's okay too.
I had something cancel, so I'm actually free till 1 p.m.
Yeah, well, we can't keep you that long. We got to work, but go for it.
I'm kidding.
My question was, obviously, I have gained so much information from all of this, and I know you said you do more of a lengthier version of this. Do you do any of those virtually that maybe we could jump on at some point?
100%. I am going to Florida on Friday for a week to visit some family, but I think it is I have to check with my director of operations. He knows way more than me about this.
I'm happy to, if you want to tell us when your next Zoom is, or your schedule for the next time you do it virtually, I'm happy to send that to everybody.
100%. Yeah. Sometimes I'm doing my negotiation class like twice a week. Sometimes it's twice a month. And I really love talking about negotiation. So, but there's definitely one next week that I'm doing virtually because I'll be in Florida. I think it's to another market center in New York, actually.
But yeah, send us the information.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
And one other question, Sharky, go for it.
This is Fatima and I both had the same question, just sort of a little bit of clarification about the market pulse. Let me just reread it here. I'm on my phone. Basically, is market pulse, is it active over pending, or I'm sorry,
pending divided by active.
Got it. Okay, great. So the example of 60 in contract over 100 listings of 0.6 is a buyer market. And you think about that, it's okay, there's less things selling than so if there's 160 properties out there, 60 of them are under contract, and there's still 100 that are just listed, right?
It's a buyer's market. Yep.
Right. But it's not like there's a total of 100 properties.
No, exactly. It's 160 because it's a ratio of the pending to the active. So it's 160 in that example. Yeah. It's not 100.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I don't know if any other curious minds are wondering this, but first of all, do you need any new friends? And two, this thing that you're talking about, how much data you provide them a buyer or a seller. I'm super curious about that. I mean, I could email you about that, but I'm just kind of curious about like, what does that come across as a document that you
Yeah.
curate? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a document, and it's actually interactive. You can click on it and there's charts and graphs. We've gone pretty deep. But it's
Is that something you're willing to share?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, if you could share that. I
So
think
that-
I have some questions about that.
Yeah. So that's
I'll share
you're
anything. I don't-
maintaining. Yeah. So you're maintaining that. That is a constant maintenance so that it can stay
Yeah.
updated month to month, year to year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have an analytics company we work with that provides a lot of that, but we've put it into our own system.
And that's if you guys didn't know, Manhattan or New York City doesn't have an MLS. So
Correct.
Seth is in a little different boat there where it's harder to get data information. It's a little bit easier for us since we have the MLS.
Exactly. We do not have an MLS.
Yeah,
Our
which is nuts.
real estate board of New York thought that they were so smart not subscribing to the MLS system, and then they let Zillow take over.
Yeah. Yes, you are a licensed real estate salesperson, not a realtor. And
Yeah,
also,
yeah, I'm an associate real estate broker,
oh, there you go.
and there's licensed salespeople, but nobody's really a realtor in New York.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Right?
And we'll go in just a minute, but if someone asks if Seth needs new friends, Seth is a great friend. And also, if you ever want to go to New York for like a vacation, you just ask, like, go to the KW office. It's like it's on Park Avenue. It's a really nice office. Ask to have lunch with someone or take someone to lunch or go to an open house, and you get to write off half your trip. So if you guys wonder how I travel all the time, just make sure to do some real estate while you're traveling.
I teach a class everywhere I go.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely hit Seth up if you guys just are in New York for fun too. But thank you so much, Seth. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to spend time with Texas. And if you guys need to reach out to Seth, obviously follow him on all this stuff. And yeah, whenever I get the info from you, Seth, I will definitely disperse it. So thanks again.
Thanks, everybody. And yeah, feel free to email me. It's Seth@levincong.com.
Thanks, Seth. See you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Elizabeth. Bye, guys.